Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are really undertaking quite a massive mission.
Yeah, we really are.
We're trying to cut through, decades of financial myths, all the media noise, the Hollywood stuff, to understand who the truly wealthy people in America actually are. We're looking at a whole stack of research, case studies, revealing these, well, surprisingly non-fleshy habits of the millionaire next door.
That's the core of it, exactly. We're not really interested in the lottery winners or, the super visible celebrity CEOs.
Right.
The goal today is to analyze the factual data, the kind that tracks consistent behavior over decades, to show how sustainable wealth, the kind you can pass on, is actually accumulated.
So moving past that image of the luxury consumer.
Right, and focusing on the maybe less exciting but real story of the consistent accumulator.
Okay, let's unpack that essential distinction right away then, because the source material is so clear. Most people get wealth and income completely mixed up. This is like the bedrock, isn't it?
It is. It's probably the single most critical concept the researchers defined. Income is just, well, it's cash flow, what you earn in a year.
A snapshot.
Exactly, a one-year metric. But wealth, that's what you accumulate, what you hold on to, your net worth.
So you could earn a high six-figure salary.
Right, but if you spend every single dime trying to keep up appearances, buying the latest car, getting the biggest mortgage you possibly can, you're just, as the sources say, living high.
Living high, yeah.
You've got the income, sure, but you're not actually getting wealthier. Your net worth isn't growing.
And the economic history really backs this up. The data from, the mid-90s, it showed American personal wealth was just staggering over $22 trillion.
Huge numbers.
But almost half of that massive amount was controlled by a tiny fraction, like 3.5% of households.
It's incredible.
That tells you right there that most people, even people earning really good money, they're failing to turn that income into lasting capital.
They're stuck on the treadmill. Earning top-tier salaries, maybe, but also taking on top-tier liabilities to match. And the actual path to getting wealthy, it consistently goes against that popular story of, luck or inheritance.
Right. It's not the lottery ticket?
No. The research proves it's rarely about one brilliant move or a massive inheritance or even having the fanciest degree.
So what is it then? What's the secret sauce?
Well, it's far more often the result of pretty mundane things, honestly. Hard work, perseverance, really rigorous financial planning, and maybe above all else, just uncompromising self-discipline.
A marathon, not a sprint.
Definitely. Built on those daily choices.
I think this statistic is genuinely inspiring for anyone listening. Over 80% of America's millionaires are actually first-generation rich.
That's huge.
They built it all from scratch. That just proves the system is accessible, right? If you have the discipline, it's earned, not just handed down.
And to help us really analyze these behaviors, the research categorizes people based on how well they accumulate wealth relative to their age and income. We need to get our heads around two key groups here because we'll be contrasting them throughout. They're like two sides of the coin. Okay, lay them out for us. First, you've got the PAWs. That stands for Prodigious Accumulators of Wealth.
Got it.
These are the folks who, when you measure them against their age and income, they're in the top quartile for building wealth. They're the efficient ones.
The super savers, basically.
In a way, yeah. And then second, you have the UAWs. Under Accumulators of Wealth, they're in the bottom quartile.
Okay, PAWs and UAWs.
And the financial difference between these two groups,
No.
well, that's the main lesson here. PAWs typically pile up at least 4 times the wealth compared to UAWs.
4 times, even if they're earning similar money.
Even when both groups are pulling down similar, solid 6-figure salaries, the difference is almost entirely behavioral.
Wow. Okay, that is remarkable. If it's mostly behavior, let's jump straight into the shocking reality of what these PAWs, the truly wealthy, actually look like.
Sure.
Because they definitely don't fit that high-spending image.
Well, absolutely not.
Yeah.
The public gets it wrong all the time because they focus entirely on the expensive stuff, the visible things, the signals of high consumption.
The status symbols.
Exactly. The researchers had this perfect phrase for it, borrowed from Texas. Big hat, no cattle.
That's brilliant. Big hat, no cattle. Can you share that anecdote about the businessman? Because it just nails the difference between perception and reality.
Sure. So this was a self-made millionaire, built a successful business rebuilding large diesel engines, solid work. He was meeting some British partners, right? And because he drove like a 10-year-old car, wore jeans, lived in a pretty modest house, they thought he was one of his own truck drivers.
No way.
Yeah. He didn't need the flashy stuff. He was the one who famously said, "I don't own big hats, but I have a lot of cattle." His net worth was huge, but his appearance, totally functional.
And contrast that real wealth with the typical image we see.
Well, contrast it with, say, the trust officer mentioned in the sources.
Yeah.
You know, the bespoke suits, the $5,000 watch, driving the latest, least luxury sedan.
Looks the part.
To the public, absolutely. That officer screams affluent. But the self-made Texan, the PAW, he has the actual net worth built on assets he owns. The irony is, it's often the UAWs spending big specifically to look the part.
The part the PAWs don't even care about playing.
Exactly. They neither need nor want to maintain that image.
Okay, so let's synthesize this. Let's detail the statistical profile of the typical millionaire next door. Who is this person who got financially independent using these methods?
Okay, the median affluent person, statistically, is a 57-year-old male. Married, usually with 3 kids. And here's a kicker. 2/3 of working millionaires are self-employed entrepreneurs.
2/3. That's huge, considering how few people overall are self-employed.
It is. Self-employed folks are less than 20% of the workforce, but they are way overrepresented among the truly affluent.
And their businesses. They're usually what the sources call dull normal, right? Not tech startups.
Exactly. Not Silicon Valley unicorns. We're talking welding contractors, mobile home park owners, maybe coin and stamp dealers, pest controllers.
Okay, so what's the appeal there? What's the advantage of a dull normal business for building wealth?
Well, the brilliance of the dull normal model is its ability to generate pretty high cash flow without falling into the traps of, high social display or needing tons of capital for frivolous things.
Right.
These businesses often have really good profit margins, stable demand. People always need a plumber, right? Or a pest controller.
True.
And crucially, they don't require the owner to wear a $5,000 suit or drive a Ferrari to impress clients. The clients are often other business owners or just middle-class folks.
So the kind of low-status nature of the business itself is a defense against that pressure to spend?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The owner can just focus on efficiency, controlling capital, not reacting to luxury marketing trends.
Yeah.
Plus, a lot of these businesses, like the mobile home park owner or the contractor who owns their own heavy equipment, they're asset-rich. They build wealth through tangible things that appreciate and often offer specific tax advantages, too, which helps minimize their realized income. We'll get more into that later.
Okay. And this stability, this focus, it shows up in their home lives, too.
Yeah. 97% are homeowners. Median net worth around $1.6 million. And here's a key detail. They've often lived in the same pretty modest home for more than 20 years.
20 years.
They bought something functional, paid down the mortgage, benefited from maybe 2 decades of appreciation, all without the crippling debt you get from constantly upgrading to the latest neighborhood or the biggest house.
And that frugality, it just flows right into their personal appearance. You mentioned Mrs. T earlier.
Miss T's a perfect example. She wears a Timex. Her millionaire husband, a Seiko, which, interestingly, the research found was the #1 watch brand among millionaires.
Seiko, really, not Rolex.
Nope, Seiko. And she shops at places like Dillard's, JCPenney, TJ Maxx. Her last haircut, $18.
Wow.
The choices are just based on value and function, not trying to signal status.
Let's dig into the hard data on consumption then, because this is where the public idea really falls apart. What do they actually spend on those visible status things?
The numbers are surprisingly low, like really low. When surveyed, half of all millionaires said they'd never spent more than $235 on a wristwatch, ever.
$235.
Yeah. Only a quarter, 25%, paid $1,125 or more. Those multi-thousand-dollar watches you see advertised everywhere. They're being bought by the high-income professionals, the UAWs, who feel they need to signal their status.
The PAW doesn't need the signal.
Exactly. Their net worth is the signal, even if nobody else sees it.
And suits, same story, right? Reinforces that dull normal advantage.
Precisely. The typical self-made millionaire paid only about $360 for a suit. Compare that to inheritors or corporate types who have to look the part. They reported paying over $600.
Makes sense.
Why spend more if you don't have to? If you're a rice farmer or own a storage facility, your environment just doesn't demand it. And get this, 30% of millionaires hold a JCPenney credit card.
JCPenney, known for sales, accessible prices.
Exactly. And the data on shoes. Honestly, it's a direct hit against consumerism.
Go on.
About half of millionaires have never spent $140 or more for a pair of shoes. And for every 1 millionaire who does spend over $300 on shoes, there are at least 8 non-millionaires doing the same thing.
8 non-millionaires spending big on shoes for every millionaire. Wow.
Yeah. The PAW sees shoes as functional foot coverings. The UAW sees them as a status marker they need to display.
And this disciplined approach, it extends to cars too, right? Which is
Right.
often a huge money drain for high-income people.
Overwhelmingly, millionaires drive American-made cars, and only a minority drive the current model year. They buy, they hold, pay cash, or pay off the loan fast. And crucially, only a minority ever lease their vehicles.
Okay, why is avoiding leasing so important? You hear it pushed all the time as a way to drive a nicer car for less per month.
It's a financial trap, pure and simple. Leasing is just. It's inherently expensive because you're basically renting the car during its steepest depreciation period.
You never build equity.
Never. You're just locked into a payment cycle forever, guaranteeing high transport costs for life. PAWs want to own assets. They see depreciation as a potential tax benefit sometimes, not a cost they have to keep paying to a finance company. Leasing is the total opposite of the accumulation mindset. It's all about maximizing consumption speed.
Right. Which brings us neatly to that core dynamic. The stark contrast between the PAW and the UAW, where unchecked spending becomes this massive liability that just eats away at capital faster than even a high income can replace it.
And to really quantify this difference, the researchers came up with the expected net worth formula. It's a simple metric, really, designed to see if you're building wealth efficiently based on just two things: your age and your total annual realized income.
Okay, let's walk through the formula for the listener. You take your age,
Yep.
multiply it by your total annual realized income,
Right, the income you actually take in and pay taxes on.
and then divide that whole thing by 10. And that gives you a baseline for what your net worth should be, sort of, if you were average.
Exactly. So for instance, take Anthony O'Duncan. He's 41, earns $155,000 a year. Multiply 41 by 155,000, divide by 10. His expected net worth is $635,500.
Okay.
Now, to be a real PAW, a prodigious accumulator, he needs double that, about $1.27 million or more.
Wow, double.
But if he has half or less, say $317,750 or below, he's classified as a UAW, an under accumulator. It forces you to look at your income versus your actual savings efficiency.
The case studies in the book really make this formula hit home. We've got Mr. Richards, the mobile home dealer, age 50, income $90,200. He's a PAW. His actual net worth, $1.1 million, way more than double his expected net worth.
Classic PAW.
Yeah.
Now, compare him to Mr. Ford, the attorney. Age 51, income slightly higher, actually $92,330.
Okay.
His expected net worth was calculated around $470,000.
Yeah.
But his actual net worth, only $226,511.
Oof. Textbook UAW.
Textbook. Earning good money, but just not accumulating.
So this is the, $800,000 question. How can the mobile home dealer have nearly 5 times the wealth of the attorney when their incomes are basically the same?
It boils down entirely to lifestyle, and lifestyle congruent with profession. Mr. Ford, the attorney, feels he has to spend more to keep up that upper-middle-class image his job and his peers seem to demand.
Right.
He needs the foreign luxury car, the expensive suits, the country club membership, all the visible signs of a high-status job.
He's paying the high cost of status.
Precisely. Whereas Mr. Richards, the mobile home dealer, lives a middle-class, maybe even blue-collar lifestyle that fits his industry. His world doesn't pressure him to drop $1,000 on a suit or join a fancy golf club.
Different worlds, different spending pressures.
Totally. Mr. Ford has a high propensity to spend to display status. Mr. Richards emphasizes accumulation and downplays consumption. That difference in mindset and lifestyle choice, that's the $800,000 difference in their net worth right there.
And this high-spending lifestyle for UAWs, it also creates this huge tax efficiency disadvantage, right? Which is something you might not notice until you look at the raw numbers.
Oh, it's stark. Look at Sharon, a UAW, and Barbara, a PAW. Both high-income professionals, both earning about $220,000 a year.
Okay, same income.
Sharon, the UAW, despite that great income, only has a net worth of $370,000. She structures her life, probably unintentionally, to realize almost all her income every year. Salary, bonuses, maybe some investment income that she takes out.
And the result of that structure for Sharon, what did it cost her?
It was devastating tax-wise. She paid 18.8%, nearly a fifth of her entire net worth in federal taxes in just 1 year.
Of her whole net worth, not just her income.
Her total wealth. Because she's constantly realizing income, it triggers capital gains taxes, puts her in high ordinary income brackets. She's earning a lot, sure, but the government takes a massive slice, and her asset base isn't big enough to absorb that hit easily.
Okay, now let's look at Barbara, the PAW. Same 220K income, but her net worth is 10 times higher. $3.55 million.
Barbara structures her finances completely differently. She aims to minimize realized income. She focuses on holding assets that appreciate in value without generating taxable cash flow along the way. We call that unrealized income.
Okay, could you just define unrealized income a bit more clearly for us? Because that sounds like the PAW superpower.
It kind of is. Unrealized income is simply the increase in value of an asset you still own. So say you bought some land or stock for $100,000. 5 years later, it's worth $500,000. You have $400,000 in unrealized income or unrealized gains.
But you haven't sold it yet.
Exactly. So that gain isn't taxed until you actually sell the asset. PAWs are masters at holding onto appreciating assets. Their homes they've lived in for decades, their business equity, maybe investment properties or stocks they hold long term. They only realize cash flow or trigger capital gains when they absolutely need to.
So the average PAW millionaire, they're only realizing, what, less than 10% of their total net worth as actual taxable income each year?
Significantly less, often. It allows the bulk of their wealth to just keep growing, compounding, often tax-deferred, or even tax-free in some cases, like with primary residence gains. They keep their capital working for them.
Well, the UAW realizes too much income, pays way more tax.
And the tax man is always knocking at the door. It really shows that building wealth is fundamentally a defensive game played over decades. PAWs are playing great defense against taxes and against that societal pressure to spend, spend, spend.
Right. Speaking of defense, let's look at the household itself, the foundation of frugality. The sources really hammer home that millionaires play both offense-generating income and defense frugality, controlling costs.
And the dynamic within the marriage or the household is crucial. Almost 95% of millionaires are married couples. And in 70% of those couples, the man brings in 80% or more of the income. So often, the wealth is generated primarily by one high earner.
But it's protected by the whole household being on board with frugality.
Absolutely. The spouse's role is critical in maintaining that defense. PAWs often say their spouse is actually even more frugal than they are.
There needs to be alignment.
It's a foundational cultural alignment, yes. There's this perfect, really high-impact example in the research. A millionaire takes his company public, gives his wife $8 million in stock.
$8 million. Okay.
Her response: quiet gratitude, and then she immediately goes back to the kitchen table and keeps cutting out her 25 and 50-cent food coupons.
Wow. After getting $8 million, what does that tell us? Is it really about saving 50 cents at that point?
No, of course not. It's not about the 50 cents itself. It's about protecting the core value system. It shows her commitment to frugality is deep, it's habitual, it's totally independent of the current cash flow or net worth.
She sees the $8 million as capital.
Exactly. As capital to be protected and grown, not as a license to suddenly change a lifetime of disciplined habits. A couple just cannot build wealth if one partner is a hyperconsumer. It doesn't work. The spending habits of one will just sabotage the earning power of the other.
And this disciplined mindset, it leads directly into their planning and budgeting habit.
Right. Millionaires didn't suddenly get frugal after they got rich. They got rich because they budgeted and controlled expenses. And they stay affluent the same way. The data shows for every 100 millionaires who don't budget, there are about 120 who do. Budgeting is a majority habit.
Okay, but what about the ones who don't budget? The sources mentioned they often use that pay yourself first strategy.
Yeah, that's the workaround for some. More than half of the non-budgeting millionaires, they automatically invest a minimum of 15% of their realized income first, right off the top.
Create artificial scarcity.
Exactly. They make the money unavailable for spending before they can even think about it. It enforces discipline through automation.
And this commitment to control means they actually know where their money goes, unlike many people.
That's the difference between being the master of your money and, well, being a servant to your spending habits. Over 62% of millionaires know exactly how much their family spends each year on the basics: food, clothing, shelter.
And for high-income non-millionaires, the UAWs,
only 35% could answer that accurately. If you don't track where it's going, you can't optimize anything. You can't plug the leaks.
And this discipline, it translates directly into how they use their time too, right? Which for a high-income earner, time is probably their most valuable resource.
Absolutely. PAWs spend significantly more time on financial planning and analysis. We're talking 8.4 hours a month on average. That's over 100 hours a year.
And UAWs.
Only 4.6 hours a month, about 55 hours a year. PAWs spend almost double the time analyzing investments, taxes, long-term goals. That diligence is a huge part of their success.
And this difference in time spent shows up dramatically in how they invest, especially how they approach expertise. We see this with Dr. North, the PAW, versus Dr. South, the UAW.
Right. Dr. North, the PAW physician, he's a classic focused long-term investor. He puts his money into areas he actually knows and understands: agricultural land, maybe stocks from the medical field like drug companies or instrument makers.
Invest in what you know.
Exactly. He follows that principle. And crucially, Dr. North spent $0 on external financial advice for his multi-million-dollar portfolio. Zero.
Wow, he's his own expert.
He is. He rarely sells, minimizes transaction costs, minimizes realized capital gains. Very patient.
Okay, then there's Dr. South, the UAW physician, the cautionary tale.
Well, yeah. Dr. South had a much smaller portfolio, only about $200,000. But he had accounts spread across 4 different full-service brokerage firms.
4 firms for $200.
Yep. And he was trading constantly, churning the account based on whatever the broker's flavor of the month was. Racked up massive transaction fees, generated tons of short-term capital gains, which get taxed at the highest rates.
So how much did all that cost him?
The estimate was over $35,000 in a single year. On advice, fees, trades, all for a portfolio that wasn't even performing well. He basically substituted expensive, often counterproductive, external advice for his own personal diligence.
So PAWs invest their time to gain expertise and keep control. UAWs spend huge amounts of money to outsource control and then wonder why they aren't getting richer.
It's diligence versus delegation, fundamentally. And you see this exact same mentality reflected in something as seemingly simple as how they buy cars.
The motor vehicle acquisition types. The most successful accumulators within the Millionaire Group are the used vehicle-prone shoppers.
That's right. This group, about 20% or 1/5 of millionaires, they really embody defensive wealth building. They have the absolute highest net worth for each dollar of income. The crazy ratio, $17.20 of net worth for every $1 of income.
$17 of wealth for every dollar earned. How?
They accumulated, on average, over $3 million simply by systematically avoiding one of the biggest consumption traps there is: new car depreciation.
Okay, what defines this group? How do they shop?
They bargain hard,
Yeah.
really hard. They shop across multiple sources: private sellers, auctions, dealerships, and they absolutely refuse to be rushed. They might take months to find the right functional vehicle at the right price.
It's a battle for them.
It is. They see car shopping as a battle against inflated retail prices and depreciation. This mindset is just non-negotiable. And interestingly, they are significantly more likely to agree with the statement, "I have never bought a suit that was not on sale."
Huh. It all connects.
It's all part of the same value-driven anti-status wealth strategy.
Okay, so it's crystal clear that PAWs live by this code that's completely opposite to the high-income UAW lifestyle, where spending is often maxed out to create this illusion of success. But that illusion, it often starts much earlier in life, doesn't it? Fueled by something the researchers see as one of the biggest threats to financial independence: economic outpatient care, EOC.
Yeah, EOC. That term refers to substantial economic gifts, subsidies, acts of kindness given by affluent parents to their adult children and even grandchildren. These aren't just one-off gifts. They're often annual subsidies designed to prop up a certain lifestyle.
It's common.
Very common. Over 46% of the affluent get at least $15,000 in EOC every year.
15 grand or more every year. And what forms does this take? What are they paying for?
It's pretty broad. You see things like funding education for the grandkids. 43% of millionaires with grandkids pay for some or all of their private K-12 tuition.
Wow.
Nearly 60% have given major help for buying a home, often covering the entire down payment. And an astonishing 17% of millionaires have paid their adult children's mortgage completely.
This paid it off for them. The intention, I guess, is usually good, to give them a leg up.
The intent is often benevolent, sure, to provide an advantage, a cushion. But the data shows this really powerful negative correlation. It's often called the spoiling effect.
Okay, negative correlation, meaning?
Meaning the effect of EOC on the recipient's actual net worth is highly counterintuitive. In 8 out of 10 occupational categories studied, the adult children who receive these regular gifts actually have a smaller net worth than their peers in the same job who don't receive gifts.
Get out. Receiving money makes you poorer.
Relatively speaking, yes. For example, accountants who receive gifts regularly. They only 57% of the net worth of accountants who don't get that kind of help. The more you receive, generally, the less you tend to accumulate yourself.
Okay, psychologically, how does that work? Why does getting free money actually hurt your ability to build wealth?
The researchers call it the montage effect. Basically, the recipients start to confuse their parents' wealth, their capital, with their own earned income.
Ah, they feel richer than they are.
Exactly. They feel wealthy because of the parental subsidy, so they adopt this high consumption, often credit-heavy lifestyle that their actual salary can't possibly support. They start to think that high standard of living is just normal, which leads them to keep spending at a level that prevents them from ever saving or accumulating any capital of their own.
Let's use that case study of Mary and Lamar to show how this montage effect can ripple outwards, affecting not just them, but their whole community.
Right. Mary and Lamar, married couple. Their own earned income never topped $60,000 a year, but they lived like they earned $200,000. Country clubs, expensive imported luxury cars, the whole 9 yards. They managed it entirely through EOC from Mary's mother. Mom paid the private school tuition for the kids, and critically, she gave Mary stock from her portfolio every 3 years.
Okay, so she got assets, capital.
Yes, but what did Mary and Lamar do? Their immediate reaction every time was to sell that stock and use the cash to buy a brand new foreign luxury car.
So the parental gift was just treated as consumption fuel, not investment capital.
Precisely. And this had a knock-on effect. They became terrible financial role models for their neighbors. They actually convinced a new neighbor, a high-income executive who was trying to be frugal, that he had to send his kids to the same expensive private school because the public schools were supposedly inferior.
But they didn't mention who paid their tuition.
Of course not. They failed to mention that they paid zero tuition themselves. Luckily, the neighbor, who was kind of a paw in training, did his own homework, checked out the public schools, and realized they were perfectly fine. He saw he was being pressured by the high-spending norms of a subsidized family.
Norms which would have instantly turned him into a UAW if he'd followed them.
Exactly. It shows how these subsidized lifestyles can actively raise the consumption bar for everyone around them, making it harder for independent accumulators to stick to their plan.
And there are also biases in who gets this EOC, right? Occupational and gender biases.
Yeah, the data shows that housewives, particularly what the researchers term type B housewives, those seen as more dependent and the unemployed, are significantly more likely to receive these substantial financial gifts and inheritances.
Why type B?
They're often viewed by their affluent parents as needing the subsidies just to maintain a basic middle-class lifestyle. There's a perception of dependency.
And on the flip side, who gets less?
Conversely, the most highly productive adult children, the entrepreneurs, the doctors, the professors, they're significantly less likely to receive EOC or large inheritances.
That sends a pretty weird message, doesn't it? Dependency gets rewarded with cash, while success and independence get less financial support from parents.
It implies that, yeah. And this tendency to subsidize dependency actively undermines what the researchers found to be maybe the most crucial non-financial trait for building wealth: courage and independence.
Courage. How do they define courage in this context?
It's the mental ability to deal with financial risk, financial uncertainty, and hardship, to push through it.
We see this really powerfully in the story of Cinderella, Sarah, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. Sarah was an executive. Her father was affluent, strong-willed, and he actively punished her financially for wanting a career outside the family business. Basically cut her off.
Ouch.
Meanwhile, her sister, Alice, the type B housewife, she was heavily subsidized, got loads of EOC, received the bulk of the inheritance when the father passed.
And what happened?
Alice and her husband blew through the inheritance pretty quickly, lived high, didn't save, left their own kids financially dependent without any ethic of saving.
But Sarah, the one who got nothing, the lack of that cushion forced her to develop discipline, right?
Exactly. Sarah had to make it entirely on her own. She became a self-made millionaire through meticulous saving and investing. And the real twist: when her subsidized sister passed away, it was Sarah, the disciplined, independent one, who stepped in and set up educational trusts and maintenance funds for her nieces. She was securing their future, but with strings-attached controls designed to prevent them from just repeating their parents' spending habits, trying to instill some discipline. The child who got nothing ended up being the family's long-term financial anchor.
It really shows how adversity, maybe counterintuitively, can be like an inoculation against financial fear and dependency.
It absolutely can. Look at the case of Miss BPF, an entrepreneur, but she was fully subsidized by wealthy parents. No college debt, lived at home rent-free after graduating, got capital from them to start her business. Everything handed to her.
Sounds like a dream start.
You'd think. But despite her high income potential and zero debt, she listed 12 major fears, 4 times more than the typical self-made affluent business owner. including fear of her business failing, fear of her standard of living dropping.
So the parents who shielded her from all financial risk actually created an adult who lives in constant fear, lacks confidence.
Precisely. Courage, that mental strength to handle hardship, it just can't grow in an environment where all difficulty is removed. The PAW business owner, dealing with daily risk payroll, clients not paying, market swings, develops the mental toughness needed to build and sustain wealth long term. Miss BPF never got that chance.
That's an incredibly deep insight into the psychology behind wealth, not just the numbers. Okay, so wrapping this all up, what does this entire analysis mean for someone listening? Let's summarize the core lessons for achieving financial independence based on all this data.
Okay, first and foremost, real financial success comes from managing your lifestyle. Frugality, budgeting, disciplined saving, that's the engine. It's not just about earning a high salary. You have to play great defense, and your whole household needs to be on the same team about it.
Right. Second, choose your environment and your job carefully. Self-employment, especially in those dull, normal fields, often give you more control over investments, helps you build assets, and crucially minimizes that social pressure to spend big to impress people. Avoid the attorney trap.
Third, you absolutely have to break free from the earn-to-spend treadmill. High-income UAWs often use massive debt, huge mortgages, expensive car leases almost, to motivate themselves through fear. Fear of defaulting.
Yeah, that's stressful.
PAWs do the opposite. They prioritize financial independence, minimal debt, over keeping up an excessive lifestyle that forces them to constantly work harder just to pay the bills.
And finally, let's come back to that idea of courage and risk. The PAWs who build lasting wealth, they conquer fear through action, especially the self-employed ones. They learn that risk is actually manageable.
We saw that with Laura, right? The housewife whose husband suddenly left her. She was forced into real estate, refused EOC from her wealthy parents because she'd been raised to be independent.
Her motivation was just pure necessity.
Exactly. She said, "It's amazing what you can do when you set your mind to it. You'd be surprised how many sales calls you can make when you have no alternative except to succeed."
And that necessity, that courage she found, allowed her to tap into talents she didn't know she had. And ultimately, she built a multi-million-dollar real estate business. She outperformed her ex-husband because she developed independence early on, finding jobs in high school and college.
It connects right back to that fundamental difference in priorities that defines PAWs. They accumulate wealth for independence, for freedom, for what they often call a go-to-hell fund.
Love that.
The capital they need to live life on their own terms, to walk away from jobs or situations that compromise their integrity. Whereas many high-income UAWs, like Mr. Ford the attorney, they work incredibly hard, sacrifice family time, largely to impress significant others, people whose opinions, the sources suggest, are often more imagined than real. They're chasing external validation.
Okay, so we leave you, the listener, with this final provocative thought, building on what these successful accumulators shared. If money really is just the icing on the cake of life, a means to an end, not the end itself, what non-financial assets, what character strengths are you prioritizing? Things like self-reliance, your reputation, your integrity, maybe a strong family, or the courage you develop by facing challenges. Are you defending those things as fiercely as the millionaire defends their net worth?
Because at the end of the day, those non-financial assets might be what truly give you the freedom from being tied to the world's expectations, the genuine independence that money alone can't actually buy.
That's an excellent reflection to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the true habits of the millionaire next door. We'll see you next time.